afternoon, everyone. Let's talk about advanced mobile optimization. So as Aryan said, I'm Miley. I've been at Google for a long time now. I'm out of Mountain View, California. And I'm born and raised in the Bay Area, went to college here. And then a timely stat about me is that I am in last place in my fantasy league. So that's kind of sad, except that I'm tied for 6 other people, so not quite as bad. Okay, so for our agenda, I'm going to put this in the format of, we talk about customer journeys, let's talk about the SEO journey. So your brand is here, right? And you have all these options. You have Google, you have the App Store optimization, you have social. And in the end, we all want to get to these potential customers, whether they're a user voice searching on their mobile phone, or on their laptop, or mobile using a chat app, or they're using a home device, right, through voice. So we want to go and figure out, first, what are potential customers doing today? So what does Google see out there? Second, we'll cover Google and SEO and some of the experiences that you can have with your brand using Google or Google types of products. And then last, we'll talk about what your brand can do. So let's start with potential customers. Mobile search traffic has surpassed desktop traffic worldwide. We all know this. You know, in China, they have slow lanes for these mobile walkers with their phones. When you think about mobile, factor local. So anytime you think about mobile, remember, local is going to be a huge part of that. I say that because nearly 1/3 of all mobile searches are related to location. And location-related mobile searches are growing 50% faster than all mobile searches. So yes, on your mobile device, people are doing more and more, and they're buying more than they were before. But what's growing the fastest is still the stuff that's perfect for mobile, which is location-related types of queries and information. Google, obviously, we're thinking about, user growth. And for many of your brands being international, a lot of users are coming online for the very first time in markets like Indonesia and India. And that's going to be kind of this new area of growth where, new brands can make a dent. And kind of the first to do those things well can really have an advantage in some of these places. So remember with these users, let's take India as an example. Mobile is the first device they've ever used on the internet. They never had a desktop computer, never used a mouse. And the phone plans there aren't like ours, where you get 2 gigs unlimited or roll over any of that. They usually buy incremental data. So the size of your page is going to matter a ton because they don't want to be using, they don't make as much necessarily as we do, and they don't have great plans. So they're buying this incremental data, and everything they download is a big deal. So think about that when you look to different markets and new users. There's things like Android Auto. I have a used car right now, and we have a screen, but these screens are going to become fantastic. You could just imagine how your phone is it's just as good as a desktop computer now. You can imagine a car, right? How great that's going to be. And let's think about the auto screen and realize that location-based types of queries are going to be asked, right? And this screen is designed so that you only interact with it through voice. You don't have to look at it. You certainly don't have to touch it because they want to keep your hands on the wheel. Then there's watches. So there's all this whole wearables group, and this is just coming out in the last few years, and we're yet to see how user behavior adapts to it. Some of them are becoming so cute now, right? There's no reason not to have kind of a smartwatch in the future. It's probably something people are just going to do by default. This is my parents' house, and my mom has an Amazon Echo that she uses all the time. Every day, they play music, they get their sports scores. They're also playing fantasy football, and they're actually in the lead, but they're retired, so they have a lot of time to draft the right people. So they bought this themselves, and this is my mom, and you can imagine they don't want to get out of their seat to go find their laptop or to go get their phone. So they just like to say, Alexa, do this. Alexa, tell me this. Google Home is coming out, also, if it hasn't already, but it's slated for 2016. So let's talk a little bit about some of these devices, actually. So we have Amazon Echo already been out for several years. I think the Alexa ecosystem has over 1,000 types of integrations. Google Home, these types of things can obviously incorporate, actually, let me show you. It can incorporate stuff like voice recognition, right? So these home devices can take everything that Google Search knows from doing voice searches and do even more. So this is an example of voice recognition. First, 20% of queries are now by voice, and that's probably going to increase even more. So there's this whole texting generation, that's like my stepdaughter and millennials and maybe you guys here. And then there's going to be probably a generation after that's not going to be using text quite as much, that'll just be voice searching and won't even understand how to spell, like why spell, right? No need. And the Google app understands speech in 55 languages, again, getting to some of these markets in other areas. The great thing about this example that I want to show you is that Google search isn't just about keywords, obviously, right? We understand these entities. So I can do something like, What songs does Ed Sheeran sing?
Photograph Give Me Love and Others.
And we can actually understand the entity who Ed Sheeran is, the types of songs, we can give the answer. You can see how this is going to work in home devices, in cars, that types of thing. So 10 blue links, great when people are still doing informational stuff, but even more ways to actually get information. Another thing I want to bring up is that we can take action on all this stuff. So I can say something like, play thinking out loud. Yeah. Okay, we did it. Demo success. You could do other stuff. Set an alarm for 9 o'clock. Get directions to Coit Tower, all without touching your phone. You could say this stuff in your car. You can do this to your watch. You could probably do it to someone else's watch. No, just kidding. Okay, so that's going to be cool, right? You can do stuff like open LinkedIn and pull up the app. You could do stuff like open BrightEdge.com, pull up the website. So more and more stuff can be done through voice. It's going to be neat. What else is coming? Chatbots already out. The Google Assistant coming in the next month or so. It's already had in preview mode on Allo, our chat app. So this is a great option for service-based brands. You know, we do these mobile summits in China, Google does, just so we can see all the innovation they have. Essentially, you could just be in your chat, and you can say, when you're chatting with someone, right? Let's get me a reservation for 2 for dinner. You know, book me a haircut. You can just do this through your chat app as you're just chatting. So other ways to interact with your brands. Chatbots. Facebook says they already have hundreds of thousands of chatbot integrations. So again, it's coming. It might not be completely here yet, but it's clearly in the works. And it clearly is meeting the ways that users are already interacting with their phones. So Carl Honore says essentially what we all know. We used to dial, now we speed dial. We used to date, now we speed date. Everything is getting faster. We can see this in how it affects and impacts your site. This is Soasta's graph on conversion rate versus load time. This line is showing conversion rate as time increases. So this is the page load at 3 to 4, and then it just kind of goes down the more time it takes for your page to load. Clearly, you could imagine, so think about this, right? 3 to 4 seconds, and you're already starting to see a drop-off. Back in the days when I used a modem, you know, we would wait like 20 seconds for a page to load. Now it's 3 to 4 if you want something to be ideal. And the blue bars are showing popularity of how common that is that a page took that long to load. So you want to be in this under 5-second range for sure. If you have more of a content type site, then you might be wondering more about bounce rate. And this is Soasta's graph on bounce rate and load time. So here it comes down. Your bounce rate is the lowest, right, when you stay pretty much under 3 seconds and starts to increase after that. Now it's higher up here at these under 1 and 2 seconds. I believe because Soasta believes it's because people are clicking the wrong thing, so they're just automatically bouncing once they don't see the right thing. But again, this is all about speed. This is just the user expectations for speed. Death to bullshit. Now what we see, we've talked about users and what they want. We know they want speed. So you turn the bullshit on, like you know, gives you all these things. Like us on Facebook if you think racism is bad. Right? And then you have to hit like. And then you say, close this window, I'm a racist. Okay. And then it's like, wow, okay, I can't believe you're brazen enough to actually, and it keeps giving you these pop-ups. And what's funny about this is that it's pretty true. Because user expectations are getting savvier and savvier, but a lot of times what we're doing with marketing is just kind of trying to throw it in their faces. Like, we're not getting savvier and savvier, right? We're just trying to actually interrupt them. So what he says, the author, is that respect people in their time. Create genuinely useful things. And this is stuff we know, but it's only becoming more and more important today because the user expectations are becoming higher and higher. Luckily, there are some things that are going to remain constant, right? This isn't 100%, but this is what I believe to be true. Customers are only going to be more connected online, not less. They want minimal friction. So they want a fast, seamless experience, right? Things to load quickly. And they want increased utility. They want it to be entertaining or personalized, secure, and or informative. Again, that bar is getting higher and higher. So there's all this stuff changing, but I think we can count on these. So next, let's talk about Google and some of the great user experiences that we can help you offer. Let's go into search. Users love speed, make SERP seamless, and increased utility. So first of all, for speed, we have things like AMP, and the next speaker is going to talk about this more. 150 million AMP pages in the index, 4 million coming online all the time, every week, looks good. Now the great things about AMP, there's an under 1 second median load time from all AMP pages loaded from Google search. So when you do a search and there's an AMP page available, we can load that in under a second. And then people, if you just do AMP in general, and people visit it not through Google search, 99% of AMP pages load faster than 8 seconds. So you automatically get that pretty much out of the box, an under 8-second load time. And then this is compared to non-AMP controls, loads in 22 seconds on average. Just to give you a better illustration of this, your average mobile site is like way, way, way in the back, right? If you do AMP, you automatically get to kind of the front of the pack, just because of the way it's structured. So there's not as much flexibility, but you get immediately that page load time. And then if your brand has an extreme culture of performance where they can hand tune a site to make it load extremely fast, then you can be in the front. But the issues with that is, one, your developers might start to leave, your culture might change, it's going to be harder to maintain, and things can happen there. When you do something like AMP, it's kind of a set structure, bless you, that everyone can use. All right, more with AMP. It's in 10 blue links, right? You get the lightning bolt. It's in Search Analytics, Google Search Console. There's a new AMP testing tool in Search Console as well that gives you more of the validation and errors. And we have AMP case studies coming up. Yay. Then because AMP is open source, there's also a roadmap available of what's coming out. So you can see, so you can plan ahead and make kind of prioritize your roadmap. So to start, there's plugins available. WordPress, Drupal, Hatana, there's the AMP Code Lab, there's Advanced Concepts Code Lab, and Keynote, BrightEdge is doing a lot with AMP too. Yay. All right, next segment. So Google can help you with speed, and we can also help you make these seamless experiences. So there's stuff like structured data. This is Food Network, and we'll be talking not about this, but it's not just about stars, right? We can actually give you these great thumbnails and feature more to make users enticed to click. There's more structured data types if you haven't seen it. We have things like creative works, like articles, courses, music. There's recipes, of course, TV and movies, videos. We're expanding more there. So this is the Help Center documentation on structured data. Then, of course, to make things seamless, there's always hreflang, right? It's the red line here compared to no index, always growing in interest, hreflang. Again, when you want to reach those international markets, you can help us to target the right user in the right country with the right page if you have hreflang tags showing us what they should be seeing. So the third area that we can help you with at Google is through functionality. So there's kind of a big chunk here. At the very, very baseline of functionality is mobile friendliness. So 2 years ago, we announced the mobile friendly update where we gave a boost to sites that were mobile friendly. And there weren't as many back in the day. Today, 85% of our sites are mobile friendly in mobile search results. So congratulations to everyone for working on that. But again, because user expectations are raising, we have to do the same. So January 10th, we're going to have the intrusive mobile interstitials update. That's not what it's called. I don't know if we actually have a name for it, but I call it that. What we're saying here is that when you have an interstitial that takes up significant amount of the page and a user has to click out to see the visible content, you're kind of creating those really interruptive experiences that aren't part of the workflow the customer wants. That's when pages on a page level can be demoted in search results for these intrusive interstitials. They talked about this in the keynote, but progressive web apps, also known as PWAs. This is different from AMP in that progressive web apps aren't just a template that you use. Progressive web apps are based off of the platform of a browser that you can interact with through JavaScript. So it's Chrome-based, it's Firefox-based, and what they do is provide that full functionality experience much like a native app without having to go to the App Store. So progressive web apps allow you to work offline, send push notifications, add an icon from your brand to your home screen. So it's like a mobile website, right? You already have a mobile website that's friendly. The next thing you can do is add this PWA functionality. So you kind of superpower your website to do these types of things. That's going to be really compelling, I think, for many people, that they can actually do push notifications from a mobile website. Beyond the Rack implemented a PWA, they're a retailer. They had 52% of their mobile users coming from mobile. They saw a 26% average increase in spend that occurred by members who visited via push, and 72% more time spent on the site per visit from members who visited via push. So it's for those customers who are like, I want to come back to your brand and do this again. They don't have to go download an app. You can do a lot through PWAs. Another one that Aryan wanted me to bring up, and I need to just give this caveat here about this mobile index slide, which is that Feel free to talk about this with each other, and when you go back to your companies, you can talk about it there, but please don't tweet or write anything publicly about this, because I'm not approved to talk about it. I didn't ask, but because I don't want to go back and forth and then get denied. But the cat's already out of the bag. So Gary, my colleague, talked about it at PubCon. So let me just say this. So we're going to say a few things. But again, talk to each other. Don't talk to the press or put anything publicly. All right, mobile index. It's still an index of web and apps just as we had before, right? We still have multiple Googlebots. The smartphone Googlebot. We have the regular desktop. We have Googlebot for images, blah, 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 blah. All that's going to stay the same. But because we know mobile searchers want the freshest, most accurate content, we're going to start making the mobile version the primary version in our index. So right now, desktop is often our canonical, but mobile will be moving forward. All right, so what are the implications? Implications are, if you're doing responsive, so your mobile and your desktop are already exactly the same content-wise, et cetera, then you're totally fine, right? There's going to be no changes. And let me just say from our standpoint, we're not trying to have changes. We're not like, well, this is going to make everyone have to do this, and we're going to, not at all. We want to keep the experience still great for searchers, but because we know that there's more mobile searchers, and they want to have indexed all the right information they're going to see, it behooves us to actually become more mobile first this way. So if you're doing responsive, you're fine. If you have a site that has significantly less information on the mobile site, your mobile version, than your desktop, then you might want to start rethinking that. We're not trying to stun anyone or drastically change anything, but this will be announced pretty soon. That's why I'm not supposed to be talking about it, because you'll see the official announcement. But that's what I have to say. I think a big thing, again, don't talk about this, is structured data. For sites that do most of their structured data only in their desktop version, that's something to think about, is like, hey, mobile's going to matter. Another thing is HTTPS. Because we talked about the push notifications, we talked about AMP, all this cool functionality, all this stuff is only going to require secure connection in many cases. It's a requirement for PWAs, and much of the AMP functionality require HTTPS. And you can imagine there's no user who's ever going to say, I would love this site, but I wish it were insecure. I wish I could have a man-in-the-middle attack, right? So again, think about that with your brands as well, that you're not doing it for a ranking boost, you're doing it because this is the way the web and users are moving. And if we want to kind of go with this advanced functionality moving forward, this is one of those steps we need to take. So last, let's talk about how your brand can evolve. So we talked about users constantly changing, technology changing. We've talked about Google and all the plethora of options that we have out there, but not all, I just talked about like a handful. So what should your brand do? There's lots of options, as we know. My first thing I would say for every brand out there is to become technically agile. So keep paying off your technical debt, because you're going to need to be able to iterate, right? This is just today's options at the end of 2016. 6 months from now, a year from now, there's going to be even more going on. So it's not just about implementing the newest, latest thing. It's about being a more agile company that can shift when needed. Your back end should have the ability to implement AMP if you think it's valuable, PWAs, add markup, migrate to HTTPS, incorporate other technologies like the chatbots or Google Assistant. All right, if you have that brand that you're like, this would be perfect to interact through chat or through voice, then you want to be out there. With many of these screens, there's not going to be a chance for 10 spaces, right? When you think about voice, when you think about chat, it's going to be pretty limited. You want to be in that small select group that can really make a difference. My second takeaway is to keep the target personas top of mind and avoid distractions. So as you see all this stuff coming out, super cool. It always comes back to what your customer wants. Always, always, always. Chris Goward, the founder and CEO of Wider Funnel, had this great slide that I'm using. In the green circle, you have your prospects' desires. What your customers want is all the green stuff, right? Your competitors' features overlap with some of that, and your features overlap with some of that. Now, your points of parity are the intersection, the union with your competitor. Your points of difference, right, are the parts that you give your customer that they can't deliver, that your competitors don't. The key thing to realize, especially for brands that have been around for a while, is that your points of irrelevance are everything else that your customer no longer wants. And that's a hard cleanup to do, right? That's the same thing of being technically agile. There's a cleanup that has to be done that, like, you know what, we're supporting all this stuff and no one really cares anymore. Let's really focus on what customers want. What features to implement? First thing I would do is map your common customer journeys. Everyone's talking about micro touch points, and I totally agree. But if you just take one customer journey and look at it, then a customer can come in at any of those touch points and have a great experience. I'll show more about this. Find commonalities in your customers' needs. Determine where your brand is falling short. So if your customers would want to see ratings, then think about schema. If there's a barrier to download app, but you're like, these notifications would be great, think PWA. And then you just calculate the ROI from the various options, and then simple thing of implement, iterate. Okay, so let's take an example. So this looks like me, kind of, several years ago. I had strolling, but this wasn't supposed to be me. Oh, I've never worn a blazer. This is not like me. Okay. Healthy, let's say I'm a brand. I have a site called Healthy Lady All the Way, and .com. And I'm focused on women's health from a holistic and realistic perspective. I'm like, this is my differentiator, right? I'm not about the ideal woman, I'm about being real. And I could say this persona, to say she's female, she's age 40, she exercises twice a week, her goal is to stay fit, but the activity is she wants to decide whether or not to become vegetarian. And if you're like me, you think about this often right before you eat a hamburger. I really wish I could be vegetarian. But let's take this idea. That's her activity. She wants to know she should be vegetarian. So I map this stuff out, right? I take a task. So that's the activity. Task 1. She searches on Google for how to decide to be vegetarian. Her intent is she wants to know the cost-benefit, if there's risk for being female, location, time of day, what device is she using. And then I think about the content and user experience. I want to make sure that the article maybe shows the date so she knows it's current. Then next thing could be she clicks to my website, right? And she wants to hear advice from someone like her. So then I think, okay, she's looking for information related to her testimonials. She wants to scan and read this stuff quickly. I had to think about speed. Then you can go back. So you map your customer journeys. You find commonalities in their needs, like they land on page and they want to scroll quickly. They want testimonials. And then you can determine where your brand is falling short. I need to deliver content fast, so I'm going to prioritize AMP. I'm thinking about highlighting testimonials. Let me go talk to the content team. That's really what the users want. And next, you can calculate the ROI. We have some case studies coming. There's also some existing ones. Washington Post has an AMP case study about what they saw an increase in mobile search users returning. Sowasta has the decreases in bounce rate, right? So you could say, okay, I mapped these customer journeys. Here's what they need. I'm going to use some of these case studies to determine which options would be the best for my team. So this is kind of a lot to take in, but what I want to remind you is that you've been through this before. So you roll back like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and the question back then wasn't just a mobile-friendly website. It was, do I invest in a native app because that has great conversion and look at all the time people spend in apps, or do I invest in my mobile website? That was, I don't know if you remember this, that was really a big question coming on. But the fact of the matter is when you look at your customer, hey, even it might have a great conversion rate on my native app, customers weren't necessarily willing to go do that. I might want that, but that's not what they're willing to do. So we found out 4 years ago that only relationship-minded customers who wanted additional functionality are willing to disrupt their workflow to install a native app. So it's great that native apps exist, but it's all about what the customer is willing to do the entire time. Unless you're like an app-first company. There's exceptions, but for many brands, it's going to go this way. I know this is hard because it's changing so quickly. The Harvard Business Review has just 2 months ago their cover stories. What does your customer really want, right? So it is cutting edge, even though it's so basic. It still is. Let me end with a few things. So let me end with this, is that BrightEdge, they talked about some of this, but 80% of B2C content and 50% of B2B content is never engaged with. On average, only 33% of content is engaged with on mobile and only 47% on desktop. So before you go creating anything, before you go implementing a PWA or AMP, which they're all terrific things, or hreflang, it gets back to what is your common customer journey and what are they actually going to want. So the takeaways again. Become technically agile, right? Pay off your technical debt this whole time, Keep it in the background. And then keep your target personas top of mind. So thank you so much for your time.